Now see on top of here, this here is actually the end of a pot that I took apart off an old one. This has been in the sea for 4 or 5 years. You see it's still in very good condition. This is the trouble with plastic net, unfortunately. It's good for if you want to keep your pots alive, but bad if you lose it. So, but anyway, what I tend to do is, you will see here, there's a clip on a bit of string. Now what I do is I cut the net here and I put a piece of string in with a clip in. Now this one is actually a stainless. I don't know what I've actually been changing from stainless to steel on these now. I had to test it in the first years to see that it's would last long enough, and they do. Steel ones last about a year, 18 months, and then what they do is they break. When this breaks, this then undoes. Anything in the pot can get out. So if you lose a pot, it won't keep catching for years. Your basically stuff will be able to get out just by having this bit of string on. I mean, you could do it with a bit of thread that rots, or you can use it with a metal hook, like I say, a steel hook. These pots though, you don't really have to worry, because these pots, as you see, if you leave these pots out, with the storms we get over here, within the year these pots would be destroyed if you left them through the whole winter and weren't looking after them. If you're looking after them, it's not a problem, because you're moving them into safe spots and that. But because I only do a couple on a string at a time, they will, in the biggest of storms, eventually will be destroyed pretty quick. It's not like metal ones which won't fall apart for years. So yeah, not too much of a problem, but I still put the hook on just in case we get calm winter, you know, that will still break and out comes the catch. Right, over here we've got our life jacket. We don't tend to use our life jacket, although, you know, you're supposed to wear a life jacket. Everybody's like, oh yeah, the life jacket. I tend to wear a survival jacket or suit or jacket, depending on the time of year, which will keep me afloat, but at the same time will stop me from freezing to death. Because what you've got to remember, it's not drowning that's going to be your main issue, it's the cold. In these waters, especially in early on in the year, when you're looking at 8 or 9 degrees, you're not going to last long out there, even if you have got a life jacket on. So survival jacket for me is a much better idea. It gives me a bit of extended time maybe in the cold water. Although, you know, use a life jacket, you should really use one. It all depends on where you are and what you're doing in the end. I do not have a friend actually, years ago, he said he fell over the side, banged his head, ended up on pretty much the seabed. He wasn't very deep, but his jacket went off, because this is obviously, it's got a trigger in there, and I believe the triggers are made of salt. So once they get wet, it dissolves the salt and trigger fires, and that's what inflates your life jacket. As far as I'm aware, that's what I was told. I actually had that one replaced last year. We had a new switch put in it. I think it was last year, might have been the year before, not sure on that. But anyway, that normally stays in the cuddy and in a bag to keep it nice and dry. And like I say, I wear my jacket most times, although saying that, if I go out and the weather's rough or it gets rough, then I will put that on as an extra precaution. If I'm a bit nervous about that day, that will go on. Like I say, it all depends on the situation at the time. You know, the thing is with all these things, the trouble with things like this is, I've seen a friend, and he used to do nets. I don't do nets, but he used to do nets, and he had this, and he actually was throwing the net over, and I've seen these buckles and that get snagged in the net and almost yank him over the side of the boat. And he's fired his jacket off as well by getting that toggle caught on net. So, because that's obviously the manual inflation. So you've just got to use your head. You like use common sense when it comes to safety. You know, you can have all these safety equipment in the world, being told to use this, use that, and then end up finding it becomes a hindrance on the boat. I've had things on the boat. I've got a really great big ring that I carry on the boat, and the amount of times I've almost tripped over the bloody thing, broken my neck in the boat because of this bit of safety equipment, which is totally useless. It's designed for being thrown off of large boats to somebody in the water, so that, you know, so they've got something to hold on to or rescue them or whatever. On a small boat, you wouldn't use it, but because they like pass over the rules from a big boat to a small boat, you end up with these stupid situations where, oh yeah, you've got to carry the safety equipment, but in the end that bit of safety equipment could be more of a hindrance or a danger than safety, because they've just basically ported the rules from a larger boat to a smaller boat. Some of these rules are not designed for small boats. Like I said, every situation, in the end, you've got to use your head and use common sense in everything you do. I actually had, when I was up in Scandinavia, had a small boat up there, and this here, it's just a buoyancy aid, and a chap came out with me in the boat, and I asked him if he could swim, because it's obviously in a lake, and he said he couldn't swim. So I said, well, put that on, because obviously, you know, if you can't swim. When we came in near the dock, he actually fell over the side, and that held him up, and as he went over, I went forward and grabbed the back of his back and pulled him out into the boat again. But you know, it was lucky that he had that on. So another thing is, if you take people out in your boat, give them a life jacket, at least find out if they can swim. Anyway, going up here, we've got more ropes. We've got all the fuel tanks up there. I've got various ones from various engines in the past, the ones I've just picked up. There's spare ones. The one on the far right is the main engine one. The one in the middle is a brand new one which nobody used, and on the left is a spare one which I need to get another wire out. Normally I keep two separate tanks with two separate cables, you know, just as spares, backup, that kind of thing. But they also got to be a certain size to fit under the seat. Otherwise I can't actually get the tanks. And I'm not sure actually if I actually use the one on the right. I think it might be too high, the one on the right. I think it's probably in the other shed, the one I use. I say I've got several. I've got about 5 or 6 there. And there we have the rods on a rod stand we made. Very simple to make rod stands. So you can see down, maybe down behind the bike, down the bottom there, just holes drilled in. And what you do is you put like 2 angled bits of wood down there. So when you drop the rod in like this, it kicks the rod against there. So you don't need to hold it; it stays on its own. And that's how you do a rod stand. Very useful. You can see we can get on. We got. I actually drilled a couple of extra holes. That's why it's a bit uneven. But you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You can get 12 on that. Of course, you can always chuck a few rods in between, squeeze them in. But now you can get a dozen rods on that little stand. So we've got all the rods we use on the right there, and we've got some on the left. Now I've had to buy a load more because the other ones are just getting old, wearing out. I've actually just replaced with a bunch of eyes as well on some of the rods, so we've actually restored a few. I tell you, there's some funny rods here. This one here, I picked this one up a while back. Actually, I didn't buy it, it was being thrown out. But check this thing out, it's like a blinking shark rod. I don't know how old it is. Look at the size of those eyes. There's my thumb. Look at the size of that eye. And the top eye. Thumb, eye. That is enormous. This has got to be 70s, 60s, 50s, I don't know. I don't know if it goes back as far as 50s, 60s probably. But it is a monster. It's just the old fiberglass rods. It's not carbon or anything like that with cork handle. But it's solid fiberglass with massive eyes. And it literally is. I mean, you can see here, this thing's a broomstick. But I mean, there's some old ones back there, and I don't know if you can see it against the wall with the roller eyes at the end. That's from the 70s. That was one of my father's old rods. So yeah, but no, that one was being thrown out, and it's quite a bit of history, really, isn't it? And they still use the bull. I mean, you can take them out and use them. They still work perfectly fine. And we got a few nets. That net there I tend to use for catching prawns. Prawns I don't tend to fish with, but I do tend to eat them. This actually here was a little long line I made up. Now, I never actually used it, but I was going to put it down for see if I get some flatfish, like small flatfish placing that, because I did this many years ago. I went out, I dropped a small long line out with some worm baits on, came back and I had 3 nice plaice for the table. Like, there's only like a dozen, 15 hooks on that. It's not much, and it's not very long. Like I say, it's just a little short thing. I've thrown it out for. I've got a couple of long lines up there with about 20 hooks per line. Now they're about 12 feet apart, so they're it's a bigger one. Nice to put those out and get, you know, the odd turbot, the odd bass, just the odd sort of fish you don't often get, that I don't tend to catch in the area I'm in, because it's too difficult to fish or too rocky or whatever. But I tried them a few years back and they just weren't catching on. I mean, the fishing's been hit so hard. These little things like that just don't tend to work anymore. They used to. You used to be able to pick up a turbot here or a brill there, you know, and now you put it out and just get nothing apart from the odd dogfish or conger. Kind of gave up on that. Up there we've got a couple of harpoon guns or spear guns. Got a bow shot and an asso. That one's air compressed, it's a little small one. And the one above it is your standard band gun. That one I take if I go... God, holding this camera up, it's making my arm shake. The top one I use for when I'm snorkeling, if I go looking for fish. And the bottom one I carry sometimes if I'm diving. If I'm going for flatfish like turbot and things like that. Now, that hadn't been for a long time, so not really relevant, but the reason is yes, you can stab flatfish with a knife, but stabbing an 18 pound or a 20 or 30 pound turbot, holding onto it, because I always keep my knife really sharp for diving for obvious reasons, trying to hold onto a knife blade on one end and the handle on the other end with a fighting 20 pound turbot, bad idea, even with gloves on. Like I say, the knives are kept very sharp, so I take that and I will use that on, well, if I see a big flatfish. And usually the flatfish, I mean, it's for the table. I don't sort of dive commercially or anything like that. I just literally catch one for eating. Got a big ass torch there, no batteries in it. And we've got a bow up there, which is just an old bow I had up in Scandinavia. More for fun than, you know, target shooting and anything more than that. Coming down, we've got rubbish, we've got our tripods there, we've got our battery charger, and we've got the batteries now. These are sort of for the boat. The bigger ones are for using in the boat. There's some old car ones, they're not really good enough for the car, but they're perfectly fine for the boat. And the little one on top I got given is, this is like an emergency one. I keep it as a spare. If the big ones die, I can put that little one in very quickly in the boat, and it will pump the boat out a few times before it goes flat. Just enough for me to be able to get the other ones in and recharge, or you can use that just to get your GPS working, that kind of thing. If your big one goes flat, you've got the little one which will give you enough charge for that. And down here we've got rope, brand new rope for the fishing, and we've got the pressure washer for cleaning off all the buckets and trays and things that we use. We've got our crab pot pipe, new stuff, old rope there which will be used for roping up the crab pots, and a bike which I don't really use anymore. We've got so many cars on the roads these days. I just, you know, years ago I used to be on a bike a lot, you know, for short trips. If I used to go fishing sometimes I used to just jump on the bike, go down the road, go fishing. But to be honest, there's so much traffic these days on these roads, it's just insane, and I really don't want to go out riding amongst that. I mean, people say riding a bike is healthy, yeah, but not when you're breathing twice as fast and all the fumes of the cars coming past. So that's something you've got to take into account. And round the back here we've got our waders, which we go fishing in, but when I go looking for those abalones and things. And back there we've got a trailer board for my towing our dinghy around. And we'll have a closer look here actually. This is where I have all the fishing gear. Right, I thought we'd have a closer look at the fishing gear. So as you can see here, we've got loads of spools of line. This is some older line I've got. I actually got given that one. And we've got a lot of rubbish hanging up as well. We've got you got an air pump there for keeping your bait alive. You've got all some plugs and things, more line. That there's on the left, that camouflage thing, that's just an old poncho. I used to use that in Sweden. I used to take it in a backpack when I used to go fishing around the lakes, just in case it poured with rain basically. Save me getting soaking wet. It's coming out again. Down there you've got a load more plugs, floats, hooks, spinners, lots of different things going on there. There we've got a saucepan, that's actually for melting lead. If you see around here, let me just hook one out. See there, we've actually got lead moulds, so we make our own fishing weights. Much cheaper to do it that way if you can get hold of the lead, and we do have the lead. So these I bought this year. I'm going to use them on the boat for, well, for that really, for carrying plugs. There's plugs everywhere around here. Look, you look in this box here, under this lot, and there's thousands more plugs. Really old ones, stacked of things. So I've got to go through that actually. I'm going to take off all the hooks, clean them up, see which is any good, and retire any that are old and use them for decorations. Going up there, you'll see that we've got fishing line. I buy everything in kind of bulk. I don't buy just single spools. It's far cheaper to do it that way. And you know, I do replace my line often, especially with bass. I mean, you don't want to be losing fish because you're using old line and it's got damage to it. Plus, when we're trailing and stuff, sometimes the lines cross over. You end up damaging one bit of line with the other hook from the other rod, that kind of thing. You need to reline. Up here we buy our hooks in bulk as well. You can see everything's boxed. We've got a few hundred at a time. And down here, this here is again just packs of hooks. These are 7/0s, so quite big hooks. Same with the swivels. Everything's bought in bulk. And like I say, it's the cheapest way to do things. Down here we've got our fuel cans for the boat. There's 3 of these kicking around. Now you'll see there's net over them. The net's put over them actually does, well, one, it helps. You can use like these straps, elastic straps, to strap them up in the car really easy. The other reason is that these cans are actually plastic. They're not like the old steel ones. I went to the plastic ones because I did have the old steel ones, but the weight difference is incredible. They're so much lighter, and it's really hard work carrying a steel can full of fuel around all the time. So I've gone to the plastics, but I put that net on because it stops abrasion on, because the plastic isn't that thick. And when you're sort of sliding them around or whatever, the net takes the damage as opposed to the can, so it saves your can getting damaged. Same like the tanks, you see they've got like netting on, that's to protect them when you put the buckle and strap around the tank. So there you go, that's just a video on the shed, or on the fishing shed. Now it just goes and shows a little bit of what I do in the winter when all this bad weather's around and all the background stuff to the fishing goes on. Like I say, I don't go out and buy new equipment every 5 minutes. I try and use what I've got, simply because, you know, in this day and age a lot of stuff is very expensive. Now if you like the content I produce, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I don't usually ask people to do that, but with YouTube's new rules and regulations on content creators that are coming into force in February, it's going to make life a little bit more difficult with the videos. And obviously the quicker I can grow the channel, the more videos I can get out, and the better content I can produce, because I can spend a lot more time on it. Now over the coming year I may bring a little bit more varied content, but if there's anything you want to see any more in detail or a bit more of, just let me know and I will see what I can do on that. It all depends on obviously time, weather, tides, all that kind of thing, and what you want to see. And if there's anything, like I say, detailed regarding anything to do with fishing or the boats, just go ahead and stick it in the comments.